So good afternoon and welcome to this side event about security at this Phiweek 2021. Thanks for joining to our speakers. So today we will have some presentation about organization working. Sorry, there are some work progress here at Esvin, as you can have. Today we will have some presentation from organization working from organization from the European Commission, but also from UN working operationally and providing services in support to security and law enforcement and also capacity building. And we will have also intervention from industries working on artificial intelligence but also on data exploitation, data fusion, and also new space company. So I suggest to go to the first speaker, who is Sergio Albani. Sergio Albani is the head of Research, Technology Development and Innovation Unit at the European Satellite Center. And he is in charge of implementing a new operational solution in the space and security domain. And he will introduce SATSEN research technological development and innovation activity. So Sergio, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michela. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see my screen, Michela?
Yes, Sergio, thank you. Please go
okay.
ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Michela, for this introduction and for having invited me to present the activities on research, technology development and innovation that we are currently performing at SATSEN. So let's start with a very brief introduction on SATSEN. We are an agency of the Council of the European Union, and our mission is to support the European Union in the field of the common foreign and security policy, that is a sort of a foreign policy of the European Union, by analyzing data coming from space-based assets and other collateral data. Within SATSEN, the unit I'm responsible for, the so-called RTDI, Research, Technology Development and Innovation, has to implement new operational solutions looking at the whole Earth observation and collateral data lifecycle. And we are doing this basically working on 5 main work streams. The first one is the so-called new data sources. So what we want to do is to assess and possibly to put within the SATSEN operational chain data coming from not only from Earth observation, but also from other kind of sensors like HAPS, high altitude pseudo satellites. Another stream is related to secure SATCOM. So we are, for instance, gathering user requirements for the upcoming YouGov SATCOM program of the Commission. We are the one dealing with innovative technologies. So, for instance, big data, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, interoperable platforms, digital twin Earth, so this kind of new technologies. And we are developing a number of Earth observation-based applications. For instance, change detection pipelines using SAR, and in particular Sentinel-1 data. All these activities are mainly performed in the frame of cooperation activities. So as you can see in the bottom of the slides, we are performing these activities mainly within Horizon 2020 projects and we hope Horizon Europe. So we started in 2014 with a project called Big Data Europe, and we just kicked off one called Promenade a couple of days ago. And in a frame of direct cooperative activities, for instance, with the group on Earth observation, and we have an administrative arrangement in place with ESA, with the European Space Agency, but I will come back to these cooperative activities later. Let me just introduce why we are doing these activities, because we have to respond to a main challenge in the space and security domain. And to me, the key challenge is to maintain at the state of the art the capacity to manage and exploit Earth observation and collateral data to timely provide stakeholders with clear, relevant, and trustful information. So this is, of course, a high-level challenge, and we are facing it by acting from different perspectives. The first one is related to data, because we have to deal with more and more data coming from different sources in different formats, from new sensors at better resolutions with a higher frequency. And so we have to ensure to be able to manage and to exploit properly this huge amount of heterogeneous data. And fortunately, we can do it using technology, because also technology is evolving in a good pace. And in particular, these technologies related to observations of the Earth from space. Now, these technological advances make it possible to face a new concept of security, the so-called, what I'm calling new security. What I mean, security is no longer, to me, a term associated to analysis of given issues of specific areas of interest, but it's now associated to a number of scenarios in which different domains interconnect. And just to give you a couple of examples, climate security, in which more and more we are discussing about the impact of climate change on the safety and security of citizens. For instance, climate change is exacerbating the scarcity of resources, generating migration issues. And another example could be health security, you know? So what we have to do is to identify the cause-effect relationship between these events that now we know. Before we were thinking they were not linked, but now we know that they are. And also to identify the proper variables to be able to assess and maybe predict the situations. And that's why it's so important to perform research and innovation and cooperation activities. In SATSEN, we do it to let's say, to maintain our ambition, our role at the forefront in the space and security domain in the European Union. And the general, the aim of R&I activities are to enhance operational processes and capabilities through the assessment and, of course, the implementation of the latest technologies, to explore new application areas. I just mentioned, for instance, climate and health security, and to contribute to the SATSEN, to extend the SATSEN service portfolio, for instance, identifying and producing new geospatial intelligence products. Another important role is, another important point is within cooperation with Commission, EDA, ESA, and other institutions like GEO, that is basically key to always stay at the state of the art. But it is also important to extend the SATSEN support to relevant security-related political priorities and EU policies, such as external relations, space, irregular migration and border surveillance, maritime security, so internal security. We have a number of examples. And finally, of course, we cooperate with industry, academia, and final users also to steer the technological developments. So let me spend one slide more on the cooperation that we currently have in place with key entities in the space, security, and data observation domain. Let's start with the Commission. As I was mentioning, we are mainly cooperating in the frame of the EU Space Program, for instance, GovSatcom, and in the frame of R&I activities. Just to mention here a number of projects from Global Air Monitor, I4 Copernicus, Entrusted, Prominent. These are some of the projects that we currently have in place, dealing with artificial intelligence, machine learning, GovSatcom, maritime surveillance. So as you can see, a number of different domains. ESA, we have in place, as I was mentioning before, this administrative arrangement with ESA. We are currently implementing together with them a large-scale pilot on climate security. We developed a number of applications with the Philab and ESA on mainly on the usage of artificial intelligence for Earth observation applications. I will show an example to you later. We are also cooperating with the Telecommunication and the Integrated Application Directorate on the development of Earth observation-based services, and we are organizing with ESA a number of joint events and a number of sessions within ESA conferences. GEO, the Group on Earth Observation, within this intergovernmental organization, SATSEN is a participating organization, and the most important role we are covering, I can say, is the leadership of the so-called Space and Security Community activity. That is the only activity currently within GEO related to security. And now, and finally, sorry, the so-called research ecosystem, let's say. So one of the cooperation framework is the direct interaction with the industry and with academia. And for this, for instance, we participate in evaluation processes to assess the latest geotechnologies from a security point of view. And we also look at collateral data that can support security scenarios. So we are working with different providers of EIS and ship location data, mobility data, event databases in order to how can I say, to analyze the added value that this kind of data can bring to the operational tasks of the satellite center. Here I want to show you just some examples of outcomes of R&D activities, because working on this project, we developed a number of services and applications that now are available to the SATS and operational teams, so they can benefit in their day-to-day activities from all these new developments and technologies. So some examples of the services. Upper left, you can see an example of a multi-temporal coherence that we generated with two Sentinel-1 inputs on over the Beirut area. Maybe you remember the explosion in August 2020. And here you can see with these MTC changes and the damages are visible in red and green, so the analyst can provide some analysis of the area. On the top center, you can see the monitoring of the terrain deformation caused by earthquakes and volcano during the last weeks. You for sure know about the eruption in the La Palma Island, and this has been done by using interferometric products from Sentinel-1. These two were internal activities, while the one on the upper right, it was performed in the frame of the Horizon 2020 Better project. There we developed different pipelines for the exploitation of big time series of Sentinel imagery. And in the last year of the project, this was what we were focusing on. So the monitoring of fire and burn area in the Amazonas by fusing Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data. Lower left, you can see an example of our cooperation with ESA. Together with the PhilLab, we developed an artificial intelligence-based application to detect linear features, for instance, roads in desert areas, using, again, Sentinel-1, so using satellite SAR imagery. On the bottom center, an example of a dashboard that we created to work with data from an event database in order to assess the correlation with the other variables and displacement. This has been performed in the frame of the Global Earth Monitor GEM project. While in the lower right, within the Next Geos project, here you can see an example of, we developed some algorithms for change detection using Sentinel-2 imagery. And you can see here the construction of the Wuhan hospital. Maybe you remember the one built in China to face with the COVID-19 pandemic. So these are examples of R&D activities, outcomes performed in the frame of our R&D projects, also internal initiatives. And you have noted maybe that we are using more and more Sentinel data. Why? Because these data initially were not supposed to be used within the security domain because of the resolution. But I actually believe that we demonstrated that this kind of data can actually be useful for also within the security domain. Now, all these services, to make them available and to sustain all these results from R&D activities, what we decided to do was to implement a geospatial data management platform called GeoDump, making use of innovative architectural, conceptual, and technical solutions in order to demonstrate the vast potential of working with a platform-based approach. And this platform is also representing for us a sort of prototype of a digital twin for security, and also it will be one of the building blocks of a future SATSEN secure platform. What we can do with this platform, we can share knowledge between Earth observation developers and final users and stakeholders. We can access heterogeneous data using different standards. We can evaluate latest technologies. We can develop new pipelines, for instance, the one I have just shown to you. Most important, we can sustain R&I outcomes coming from internal activities or Horizon 2020 projects. We can also make demonstrations of suitable products and services, and these services can be also deployed. So our operational teams, for instance, they are using the MTC or the amplitude change detection with Sentinel-1. So all through this platform, the operational teams can also, use actually these kind of services within the SATSEN operational activities. Just to mention that in the video that you saw right now, this is a pilot that we implemented within GEO, the Group on Earth Observation, in which we use the Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 imagery to analyze cybersecurity issues, namely the construction of a refugee camp in the Charpia Island, an island prone to flooding, and that was affecting the Rohingya refugees that was accommodated in this island in Bangladesh by Bangladesh authorities. So at the same time, using Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2, we monitored the construction of the refugee camp and the flooding affecting the island. Last slide with some conclusions. Security scenarios, as you can imagine, are daily evaluated at SATSEN, and we do it to provide the relevant insights to EU member states, but new challenges are always emerging from data, from technology, and from models perspectives. So research and innovation and cooperative activities are key to face these challenges, and these activities I presented to you is how in RTDI we aim at bridging, this gap between the operational teams and the latest market innovation in order to maintain the SATSEN capabilities at the state of the art. And this is all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please, I will stop to share my video. Yeah,
thank you, Sergio. Thank you, really interesting, and we look forward to cooperating with you soon on new activities. Now, the next presentation is from Paola Marti. Paola Marti is a project officer for Copernicus Services in the surveillance unit of the European Maritime Safety Agency. In the past, she has worked in the Earth observation industries for 10 years, and she has experience both in research and operational services. And today she would present an overview and success cases of the Copernicus Maritime Surveillance Service. Thank you, Paola.
I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for having me. I will first start with a short overview on EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency. We were born to serve the EU maritime interest, and we work in the maritime safety security domain. Mainly the security part is the one that concerns me. I'm here for, but we also help on other issues like climate, environment, and single market issues. EMSA is like a middleman, a service provider between the member states and the Commission, and we also act as a hub of knowledge for all the things that are maritime related. This is the current setup of our Earth observation services. So you can see on the left, we have satellite missions, and we have also service providers working for us. So we are buying satellite licenses from the satellite owners, and we are also using Copernicus images from the Sentinels. And we have a network of ground stations from our service providers that are feeding the EMSA system, and that are used for our EMSA users that are now grouped in 3 main projects: CleanSeaNet, Copernicus Maritime Surveillance, and Border Control. So I'm going to talk now in general about the satellite images that we acquired for these users. And this is an example so that you see the volume of data that EMSA is handling. So this is the images that we delivered in the year 2020. It's almost 16,000 images, and they cover everywhere in the world. And maybe you can see there are some that are bigger, they're usually the Sentinel ones, and there are others that are smaller, have better resolution. So it's a mix of type of images, SAR, optical, and sensors. And this is to cover all the needs of the different users and what they are requesting. So all these services have something in common, and is that they are delivered in near real time. I think this is something that EMSA has that is very unique, or at least it's very uncommon, that we deliver all the images as soon as possible. So the process is done, the image is acquired, is downloaded as soon as possible, as soon as it reaches a ground station, and the process is done in near real time and delivered to the users so that they can act. Of course, in the maritime domain, it's important to do this because there's one moment where a vessel is there and the vessel will disappear shortly. So you need to know in the next maybe hour in order to be able to act. So we delivered this comprehensive maritime surface picture because satellite images are able to cover big extensions of the sea. So this helps on the decision-making processes in the everyday operations. So as I was saying, the Earth observation services are delivering actually 2 types of satellite images. We have optical and SAR. I think most of you are aware of these 2 types of images. So we have for SAR access to 6 satellites currently, and we do detection of vessels and oil spills with SAR, as they are very capable of it. We have day and night operations, and maybe important, the broad range of resolutions that we can have with the SAR satellites. So we don't only use the Sentinel ones with the 80-meter resolutions, but we also go up to the 3 meters or even lower resolution with some of the SAR satellites. And the images are delivered around 20 minutes after the satellite has taken the image, if the ground station is there. And for optical satellites, we have a fleet of 14 satellites from different providers, and it allows us to identify or better see some vessels in particular. We have the different spectral bands that the optical satellites provide us, and this we use to focus on the very high resolution. So from 30 centimeters to 10 meters that we don't use that much. So we usually go to the 30, 50 centimeters. And images are delivered in 30 minutes after the satellite is acquired, the acquisition. So on top of the image, what EMSA is also delivering is the value-added products. This is information that is extracted from the image itself, as you know. At the moment, we have in our portfolio these products that are vessel detection, is feature detection, which is anything that is on the sea that is not a vessel. For example, in the image, there are a few fish farms. We have activity detection in order to find something that is happening on the sea, although we acknowledge that it's very difficult in one image maybe to find an activity, but it is also a product that is looking at the future when we will be able to have maybe video or more than one image, or maybe there is actually an activity that is clearly visible, like a ship-to-ship transfer. We do oil spill detection. EMSA is very involved in maritime emergencies every day. And with the SAR images, we also deliver wind and wave, that is information extracted from the SAR. And then on top of that, we have the fusion products. And this is information that EMSA puts together from the satellite images and other systems, like, for example, a vessel traffic information system. As VESA acts as a hub for all the European countries that want to share their data with us, we have a lot of information on AIS, terrestrial AIS. We buy satellite AIS. We have VMS, which is a fishing monitoring system, and we put all of that together, and then we are able to make correlations between vessels that are transmitting their positions, and therefore we know what vessels they are, and other vessels that are not. They are not transmitting, and they are these so-called dark vessels. And this is indeed, I think, one of the most important services that EMSA is providing to their users, the identification of dark vessels. This is done in SAR or in optical, regardless, and it allows the user to identify a vessel or to find some possible targets for inspections or suspicious vessels. So it's one of the most important services at EMSA. So as I was saying before, we have these three big projects or users: the CleanSeaNet, that is focused on pollution monitoring in EU waters. And then we have Copernicus Maritime Surveillance, that is the one that is focusing on security services. We also provide support to Frontex, providing them the images and the value-added products for their users. So I'm gonna give you an overview on the Copernicus Maritime Surveillance, and my idea with this chat was to take advantage of the fact that in this session would be companies that are interested in the security at sea, maybe, that can see what we are doing at the moment, what type of use cases we have that I will show, and maybe if they have interesting products or interesting ideas, you can always come and send us an email, have a chat with us. So in the Copernicus Maritime Surveillance, we are working on these 6 function areas. We do maritime safety and security, so search and rescue or help to safety of navigation. We do fisheries control by taking images to see if there are illegal fishing or areas of fishing that are being areas where you cannot fish, where there are some vessels doing illegal activities. We are doing support to law enforcement in many different contexts. We help customs with illegal drug trafficking. It's usually very common. We are looking at third country ports to see if a vessel has already departed or is still there. We are helping in marine pollution monitoring, which is an extension of our CleanSeaNet product to outside the European Union. And we provide support to international organizations, like it could be UNODC, for example. So as I was saying before, the Earth observation information is combined with other maritime data at EMSA. And we have this interest in the whole world. So it's the global coverage, okay? Remember, it's about 60 images per day, I think we take, and they're all processed and sent to the users straight away. So our users have some common needs that are very logical, and that satellites are covering. The wide area surveillance, for example, using SAR, is one of the most common needs. The high resolution optical images to support specific operations, to be able to see details. The vessel detection services for suspicious vessels. The monitoring of ports and shores, and then to try to identify a particular vessel using a satellite image. So I brought a few examples of uses in the different domains. For example, in maritime safety, we deliver this image. This is done, by the way, many times in a routine manner. So maybe every week for this particular user, we are delivering 3 or 4 images. And in one of these images, they detected, or they saw that CMS detected 3 small non-reporting vessels, and they sent a vessel patrol. They realized one of the vessels was a small boat with 9 persons on board, probably migrants, and the decision was made to rescue them because the weather was going to be worse and it was the safest. Okay. On fisheries, we have here an image that was taken for the European Fisheries Control Agency, EFCA, that is our partner. And you can see a fishing vessel on the right and a fish cage on the left. So this optical image was taken in order to find out how many cages vessels were dragging, because they're only supposed to tow one in this particular case. This was a way of checking that everything was legal. And in this case, it was. So I have a case for customs. The Spanish authorities saw 3 potential go-fast boats in the Copernicus image. So they are non-reporting vessels that were of the size of a go-fast boat, and they were probably moving. So they sent a helicopter to confirm, and they saw that one of them was a loaded go-fast. So they sent a patrol to chase the target. The go fast saw the patrol and they started going away and managed to escape, but they had to throw the drugs into the sea. So at least the drug was partially recovered by the authorities. And a success case for the law enforcement, this example is of an optical image where it was used to identify 2 vessels. They were monitoring 2 vessels associated with an illegal transshipment. And they knew that one of the vessels was sailing in the Suez Bay and the other one was sailing north. And they wanted to know which one was which. So they ordered an optical images and they were able to identify that the vessel that did the transfer was in one place and the one that was carrying the drugs were in another place. And they could, when MAOC in this case, provided information to the Turkish authorities, and they managed to arrest and seize 1 ton of heroin. So it was a success. So hopefully these cases, I don't know, spark some imagination or ideas for the future. On our side, we are also focusing a little bit on technology, and we are trying to work with more with artificial intelligence. So we have currently prepared or compiled a training data set from all the EMSA Earth Observation Archive. So we have images from 2017 and before, and we used all the images at EMSA to make a small data set that could be used to train algorithms, putting together all the information that we had on vessels and the image, oil spills, weather data, everything that we could find. So the next step for us is we are going to open a procurement for the development of machine learning algorithms. And we've decided to start easy with the vessel detection and the vessel classification. So if you're interested in this type of procurements, be checking, please check the EMSA website in the next months in case it's up, because it's upcoming. On the long term, what we would like is to have more algorithms running, to have centralization and to have all our added value products. So not only the vessel detection, the oil spill, maybe fisheries detection, everything running at EMSA. And to start doing other predictive intelligence, using all this wealth of information to use data models and to build predictive patterns. And for sure, there are services that are interesting to our users. And on top of the data itself, we are also looking for new technologies to enrich the maritime picture. So we are looking at the radio frequency detection from space, so be able to detect a vessel because someone on the vessel is maybe using a phone. We are looking at additional satellite capabilities, infrared sensors, satellite video, and other radar and optical missions that we still don't have in our catalog. And in fact, EMSA is running a couple of proof of concept to test new technologies. And I've seen one of the speakers, for example, is from ISI, and we are trying a bit of their very nice products. So I think this is all from me. This is our email, copernicus@emsa-europa.eu. So if you have any questions or comments, please contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. Thanks. Always interesting to see how EMSA is supporting end users with a wide range of operational activities. And so the next speaker is Oran McCartney. Thanks again, Paula. He's a senior project officer at UniCRE, New York office, where he supports the development and implementation of activity of the UniCRE Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. He has a background in international law and law of international organization, and now he will introduce the new approaches exploited at UniCRE to combat crime and countering terrorism. Thank you, Oren. Please.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Michaela. It's a pleasure to be here. I will just pull up my slides. Bear with me 1 second, please. Okay, so good morning again. My name is Oren McCarthy. I am a program officer and liaison officer for UniCRE here in New York. So it's a pleasure to be here to talk to you a little bit about UniCRE and some of the work we're doing in terms of innovation, science and technology, and looking at how we can use new approaches to address some traditional challenges and problems we face in the field of crime and terrorism. So just before I get started, I'd just like to give you a little bit of a quick introduction to who we are. So UniCRE is the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute. We're one of 6 research and training institutes within the United Nations system. We were established in 1968 following a resolution of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and our headquarters is based in Turin, Italy. We have a global presence, however, though we have regional offices dotted around the world, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Asia, and we have several liaison offices as well, including my own office in New York, offices in Brussels, in Geneva, and in Rome for liaison purposes with our host country. As I said, we are, first and foremost, we're a research and training institute. The mandate provided to us by the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations is to support member states, governmental organizations, intergovernmental organizations, international organizations, through research, training, field activities, and the collection and exchange and dissemination of information with a view towards developing and implementing improved policies in the field of crime prevention and criminal justice. I think an important aspect of our mandate, however, is what follows afterwards, and this is with due regard being paid to socioeconomic change and development, as well as the protection of human rights. So we tend to work in the sphere of crime prevention and criminal justice, not always from the kind of the context of enforcement, but we have a lot of work that's focused on the human rights angles, the dynamics in terms of what do these issues mean for individuals, and so on. As I said, we are a research and training institute. We don't do traditional academic research. However, we do what we call action-oriented research. So this is research that is intended to follow on to some sort of capacity building activities, training, development of capabilities in member states. So usually the way we approach our work is initial research is done with a view towards identifying key issues, key problems, key challenges, that would then subsequently be addressed through follow-up activities together with member states. We work on a very, very wide range of activities, just purely because the mandate in terms of crime prevention and criminal justice is quite broad. We work at everything from illicit financial flows and asset recovery, organized crime and how it infiltrates the legal economy. We've done extensive work on the nexus between organized crime and terrorism. We've looked at trafficking of, for instance, precious metals and gems. We've done a lot of work in the context of counterterrorism and violent extremism, and also in terms of juvenile justice. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about, I think the focus of today, what we're doing in terms of science, technology, and innovation. Excuse me. So in 2019, we adopted a new strategic program framework for our institute, which identifies the key priorities for our institute going forward. These, without going into detail, these touch on many of the issues I've already mentioned: violent extremism, organized crime, vulnerable communities, and so on. But what I think is important is the final one, which is a very key focus on security through research, technology, and innovation. And over the past couple of years, this has increasingly become an important part of our work. It is, of course, a cross-cutting issue. So we tend to look at, how can we innovate with respect to all the different fields that we work in. We have, I will say, perhaps been more effective in certain domains and with specific technologies than with others. It hasn't been very evenly. However, we are keen in developing our kind of, innovative approaches to addressing crime and terrorism throughout all our work. I will say as well that I would say that in terms of space-based applications, our work is rather in its infancy. However, we do have intentions to further build our knowledge and experience and our work in this regard. So without further ado, I'll just kind of quickly run through some of the kind of the main areas that we have been working on. Sorry, some glitches in my slides. So in terms of artificial intelligence, we've done extensive work, and this is, I think, one of the most advanced areas we are in terms of technology and innovation. We have, for the last couple of years, been organizing a global platform together with Interpol, excuse me, on artificial intelligence for law enforcement. This is an initiative whereby we try to bring law enforcement agencies together to discuss kind of the challenges and opportunities of AI. Together with the European Commission, we've also been working on the development of a toolkit for the responsible use of AI in law enforcement. Of course, we are a United Nations institute, so in that regard, we always have a strong emphasis on, when we talk about innovation, when we talk about technology, we always focus on, what are the ethical issues that we need to address, and how do we ensure that, the uses of technology are, in a way, human rights compliant. Another initiative we've been working on as of late has been in the context of facial recognition technology. We've been looking at what are the kind of, the policies that need to be put in place to ensure the responsible use of facial recognition in the context of criminal investigations. We just released a white paper providing recommendations in terms of best practices for law enforcement agencies in this regard, which was developed together with the World Economic Forum, Interpol, and the Netherlands National Police. Another area we've been working on is the online child sexual exploitation. This is a growing phenomenon. Unfortunately, the pandemic has had a significant impact on figures which have been surging as of late. Together with the Ministry of Interior of the United Arab Emirates, we've developed this what's known as the AI for Safer Children initiative, through which we're developing a platform to highlight how effectively to introduce the various applications of AI that could be available to law enforcement agencies in terms of combating child sexual exploitation, to enhance their kind of knowledge and understanding of these tools and, in a way, bring them closer towards using them. We have also been working extensively in the area of counterterrorism. Together with the UN Office of Counterterrorism, we've just recently concluded a study on the challenges and opportunities of countering terrorism in the age of artificial intelligence. And we're also in the process of developing a report on the human rights aspects to the use of AI in counterterrorism, which will be coming out later this year. Just very quickly, in terms of the AI and counterterrorism, we look at it from the fact that artificial intelligence itself is a general purpose technology. So we look at what are the potential opportunities from it. So how can we use artificial intelligence to counter terrorism online? For instance, detecting warning signals for radicalization, predictive analytics, so on, hotspot mapping. We've also looked at, excuse me, we've also looked at what are the malicious potential of the technology. So how could this be used or abused by terrorists and violent extremists in the future? For instance, AI-enabled cyber attacks, but also issues such as what are the potential risks that AI systems integrated into critical infrastructure might face as a target for a terrorist or violent extremist attack in the future. And we just recently released 2 reports on these issues. We've also been working extensively in terms of science, technology, and innovation in the context of weapons of mass destruction terrorism. And we just recently released a report looking at, again, what are the challenges and opportunities, first of all, in terms of, the augmenting the threat of WMD terrorism, but also in terms of responding to it, what are the opportunities that might be presented from a technological perspective. And there we look at everything from drones to cryptocurrencies to augmented reality, blockchain, biotechnology. In the context of space, as I said, we are rather in our infancy in terms of how space-based technologies could play a role with respect to our mandate. One area we have touched upon space-based technology, sorry, is in the context of organized crime and supply chain security. So as I'm sure you're aware, the infiltration of organized crime into legitimate supply chains is a very significant issue, whether we're talking about counterfeit handbags or counterfeit medicines. This is an enormous issue, growing in complexity. It's the supply chain itself is a very extensive issue involving a lot of different actors that are different stakeholders, and therefore having a multifaceted response to the protection and ensuring the integrity of the supply chain is essential. We recently released a report looking at a lot of the different technology options that might be available for national authorities to protect against this infiltration. One of the technologies obviously we touched upon was space-based technologies, specifically in the context of track and trace systems. So we've looked at what are the potential of the technology to monitor authenticated goods throughout the entire supply chain. And what are the steps that can be taken then by national authorities to secure against infiltration of unauthorized products. So as I said, this was a report that was released, I believe it was late last year. So interested in seeing how we'll go forward with this. Another area that we've touched upon space-based applications has been in the context of precious metals and gems. The trafficking of precious metals has been an issue that's been flagged by the United Nations on several occasions in terms of its potential to fund criminal and terrorist activities, and by consequence, therefore, to contribute to destabilization within countries and within regions. So this is an issue of growing importance for the UN. Excuse me, apologies. And we've done a little bit of a deep dive into, again, what are the potential applications, technological applications that could be available to support member states to counteract or combat the trafficking of precious metals. One of which, again, has been space-based applications. We've looked at different uses in terms of how we can use the technology to, for instance, to detect illicit activities, and as well as to track the movement of legitimate goods, so legitimately mined metals and gems throughout the supply chain to make sure, again, that there's no infiltration of, illicitly mined materials. So, as I said, I think at UniCRE, our exploration of space-based technologies is, as I said, rather in its infancy. However, science, technology, and innovation has been for the last couple of years a priority for us, and will more than likely continue to remain this way for the foreseeable future. We do intend to continue exploring different technological applications from the perspective of our mandate. With specific respect to space-based technologies, one of the key areas we have already identified is in the context of supply chain security. So this is something we are going to continue exploring as we go forward. That said, we are interested in expanding our areas of focus in this regard. One of the key issues we have touched upon in as of late is specifically the use of space-based applications in the context of counterterrorism. I think recent developments in Afghanistan I think have highlighted the need for exploration of new approaches and new means and methodologies to be able to combat terrorism, which of course has a far-reaching impact throughout not only Afghanistan but also throughout the region and beyond. So I think there's growing interest in terms of understanding what are the different applications that could be available. In this regard, as I said, we are a research and training institute. So first and foremost, what we would like to do in this regard is to be able to identify applications, what are the potential uses, and then to demonstrate this potential to member states and ultimately towards building their own kind of analytical capabilities, specifically within counterterrorism agencies, who would be our kind of primary counterpart. Some of the issues we've flagged as potentially of interest to us would be monitoring terrorist and violent extremist activities, looking at the intersection of Earth observation and OSINT to detect anomalies, and then also again as a United Nations Institute, we're always keen in understanding how we can potentially use these applications to increase transparency and accountability in counterterrorism operations. So again, not only how do we do the enforcement side of things, but also how can we use this to make the way we enforce more human rights compliant. So as I said, these are kind of some of the kind of priorities we have going forward. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. If there's any questions, happy to address them. And otherwise, looking forward to hearing the rest of the presentations.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting framework of activity. Thank you for your presentation. So now we will start with the industry's presentation. The next speaker will be Corinne Green from ISI. Corinne is the UK and ESA regional manager, and she joined ISI recently 2 years ago, and she leads the UK and ESA accounting, sales and business development role. And she will introduce ISI, its constellation, and some use cases, imagery, and also a video for security use cases. Please, Corinne.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me and inviting me. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up. Someone. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, right, thank you very much for having me. I'm going to just do a very short presentation on ISI. For those of you who don't know us, we are a new space SAR satellite constellation. I'm hopefully going to show some security applications with some quite new experimental technology that we've been developing recently. One is very experimental, and one is actually a recent product which might be helpful for certain security applications. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of ISI. So let me just put my other presentation. There we go. So ISI was started a while back as a university technology development project at the University of Aalto in Helsinki. And Rafal is our CEO, that's him in the picture there. Very young student, but managed to miniaturize the whole SAR technology to develop a proof of concept of a satellite and to then deploy an operational service, which is where we are now a few years later. So this is one of our satellites. It's about 100 kilograms in weight with a 3-meter antenna. This is one of our Gen 2 satellites. This is the clean room in Finland where we build them. But we have manufacturing capability in the US now, and we have offices around the world as well as in Finland now as well. So this man here, Joseph Ashbacher, you may know him. He basically said that SAR on small satellites was impossible, but we managed to do it. We cracked it, and it was pretty unthinkable a few years ago, but we managed to do it, which was a huge achievement and sort of changed us into the new space environment. So we started with our first concept demonstrator, which was launched in January 2018. That was quickly followed later that year with X2, which was our first satellite. It's still in service, X2 actually, delivered thousands and thousands of images, still going strong. We sort of say our satellites have a lifespan of about 3 to 5 years. X2 is still up in space and still delivering. So we'll see how we go. This is all new territory. Nobody's ever done this before. So we're, but we're hopeful that it'll carry on for a bit. So in terms of the constellation, we have launched 14 satellites to date. We're aiming for about 18 or so satellites by the end of next year. And we will have the largest, well, we already have the largest SAR constellation in space, but that will definitely be the case at the end of 2022 as well. But each time we launch our satellites, we're obviously iterating on them. We're making them better. The next generation of satellites will be launched with better bandwidth, more capabilities, better features, things like that. So we're constantly improving our satellites. So this is what they look like. Ours are the ones with the yellow wiring on the SpaceX launches. That was one in January and one in June. So yeah, I mean, I think we had the largest amount of satellites on SAR satellites in one launch on that one in June. So we also have a very, very clever design, deliberately chosen to achieve something we call persistent monitoring. You might have seen quite a lot about it in the social media and the press that we talk about this a lot. And this is basically because we have a very careful orbital design. We have a lot of satellites, so we're looking at volume of satellites, and we have a very, very clever satellite design, which has a flat panel array, which enables us to be very agile in space. So what is persistent monitoring? Well, it's not just one thing, you know, it's not just about the highest frequency. It's also about, the highest resolution. It's not just about that. It's about, yes, having that, but it's also about having the high revisit, having the really high agility to be able to move around and monitor different areas on the same pass while switching modes on the same pass. And, you know, the high coverage is obviously a thing that we can achieve due to our large number of satellites, and fast delivery is kind of a standard thing that that we have to do nowadays to achieve service level agreements with our customers that require it. And this is why we can do it, really, due to the clever design of our satellites. So we have this flat panel array, as we talked about, rather than an umbrella type dish. We like to say, well, it is a fast turn, highly maneuverable, agile satellite. When you move the satellite in space, it settles quickly, so you can take another image very, very fast, rather than the umbrella or the other type of antenna sort of shaking a little bit, which doesn't allow you to take a clear image straight away. So we can flip about in space and image left and right. And we also have this electronic beam steering capability on our satellites, which enable us to look really wide, and we get the high coverage. So these are our three standard image modes, our spot mode being our highest resolution mode, and our recently launched scan mode at 10,000 kilometers squared at 15 meters resolution. So we are the first people to get the scan mode option onto a small satellite, and it's just because we have very, very clever people working in our company that managed to do this, which is a great achievement. So I'm going to just show you a few images now, really. I've got the easy bit now. So just, you know, you will all recognize these kinds of things. This is a 25 centimeter image from one of our satellites. You know, clearly you can see the vessels and the roads and the detail in the SAR imagery. And actually, one of the challenges really for ISI, I suppose, is to, you know, have the analysis, the people that understand SAR. It's not quite as easy as looking at an optical image. You need to, you know, really understand what's going on in there, even though you can see very clearly what's going on. But an analyst will go into the depths of this and really, really pull the SAR apart and work into that. Here's another image again. It's our spot image, our highest resolution image, taken in the port of Rotterdam. So you can see at the bottom of the screen the containers in the dock area, or at the top of the screen you can see the oil tank storage facilities with the floating lids. You can see the vessels in the port, so lots of things going on in that image. So I briefly alluded before to our scan mode. It's another world first for ISI, which is our 10,000 kilometers squared in a single image, which enables you to see sort of key sea routes really in one pass, in a single acquisition. So for example, you know, rather than just having the Ever Given stuck in the Suez Canal, we can actually get that image no problem and have many of them. But this is the Suez Canal end to end, taken in one pass on one image, and you can see all the vessels going through it, stacking up in either side, etc., etc. So it has utility for certain maritime applications. So this is our latest world first, which is catchily named the Daily Coherent Ground Track Repeat product. We call it Daily GTR in the office. What this means is it's very, very clever. So it enables you to do daily change detection with really very high precision. So you can see detailed changes in vessel movement, car tracks on the road. You can see where a helicopter might have landed in the grass and taken off again. You know, really, really millimetric changes in change detection. So this has sort of taken things to a new level because it's coherent and it's daily, which is, and we can do that because we have so many satellites and we have them in a repeat orbit. So this is what it looks like when the satellite passes are all in a repeat orbit. So they're coherent, and we create a stack of images together to extract this information to a kind of unreachable, non-coherent level. So they're kind of millimetric changes, and the uniformity of the images enables you to pull out these very, very detailed changes. So this is an example. What you have is, again, this port in Rotterdam, but you can see at the bottom right there the image dates that the images were taken, and this is just a GIF. So it's just a movie that we've made, which is made of a stack of images, and it's just showing you the change in the levels of these oil tanks. So it shows you exactly what you can get. This is another image, which is also in the port. You can see in this one that the trains are coming in to move the heaps of soil or whatever they might be, coal. You can see the vessels going in. You can see the cranes coming over from the vessels, and this is all taken coherently, so you can measure these very tiny changes. Here's another example based on land, and it's 7 days of image acquisition in Iraq, so works well in sort of sandy areas as well. And if you look in the white box, you can see the you know, the heaps and the movement of things that have happened on a daily basis and the change that's happened in that area there, which is useful for certain defense type applications and other things. So this is our delivery times of our imagery. So we basically say, and you can see that from 2020 to 2022, the timings have gone right down. So we say basically now our average time from acquisition to delivery is 4 hours. Next year, it'll be 2 hours. Our coherent revisit time is 1 day, as we've just said. And next year, it'll go down to probably 8 hours. So, you know, all the time things are improving. We're getting better at things. We have more satellites up, more ground stations. So everything just gets faster and better for the customer. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about something experimental, just show you some very quick examples of what we're calling SAR video. I think we're about the first people that have done this, and I'm just going to show you, if you bear with me, a quick video, and hopefully it's going to play. Okay, so I hope you managed to see that. I'll show you some more later, but so just to quickly, and this is my only kind of big word slide, but what is it and how does it work? So what SAR videos do is they basically give you another dimension. They allow you to see something deeper from an analyst's perspective, something that you wouldn't necessarily get from a static image. So it's experimental capability at the moment. It's not commercially available yet. But you can create videos by staring at the same point for an extended time, for 20+ seconds or more. And then you chop that image up into several separate frames, and you reprocess it and put it all back together, and you get a SAR video effectively. So you can see more analysis of movement over the ground, maritime scenes, like you just saw in the video there, and see what's happened in that individual path. So it does have quite a lot of utility. So I'll just show you a few more things, some of which have utility for security for sure. So I hope you can see on the left-hand side of that green arrow at the bottom there, the glints that you can see coming through the canopy, which is probably, you know, they're coming from houses or huts inside the tree line. Oops, sorry, just flicked on. So you wouldn't see that from a normal static image. And at the top there, you can see a waveform, the waves coming in. So, you know, that's something new again, and you could probably do a sort of course level bathymetry map type product if you were so inclined. This is just showing you some examples of the kinds of things that you could do. Here's an example of a urban area by some sort of mountainous area. And again, you can see the glints and the movement in the city there, see things that are going on that you wouldn't necessarily see from a static image. Again, this is a vessel one, and what you can get from the SAR, obviously the SAR video, is the velocity and the speed of the ship or the boat. So if it's heading from a mainland to an island, for example, they tend to take a very direct route, which is helpful for prediction of timing, interceptions, whatever needs to happen, but quite a useful thing to have. This one's a bit grainy, but it's quite nice. So if you look at the red arrow in the middle of the screen, you can see to the left-hand side, there's a dark sort of shadow that's moving up, and what it is a railway track. And that's actually a train going up a railway track. And you can see it going underneath the power lines that are glinting off the SAR. And you can see the activity on the right-hand side of the image. You can see the cars moving on the roads and things. Quite useful, again, for predicting speeds and things like that. And this is my last slide, just to show you this is a mine in Chile. Clearly, you can see all the little dumper trucks and cars going across the top there, taking all the waste material out or whatever material out. And again, this is something that you can't see from the static image, but you can see kind of much more information about pattern of life and things that are going on in a slightly separate dimension. So that was all I was going to say today, but thank you very much. If anybody's got any questions, please feel free to Slack me later or email me later, and we can chat. But I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Corinne. Really impressive, and we look forward to testing the new SAR video capabilities as soon as possible on our research security project. Now we will have the presentation from Wendy Carrara from Airbus. So Wendy is the Senior Manager for Digital and European Institution at Airbus Defence and Intelligence, and is here, and she will present the new Pleiad Neo acquisitions and capabilities. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michaela. I hope you can hear me and that you can see the slides. So I'm not Pierre-Alain Bosque, who was the initial speaker, so you got an upgrade of getting someone different this time. And thanks again. I mean, very insightful discussion and a lot of presentations in terms of what I'm now calling next space, in terms of all the future capabilities and the, let's say, the fuel that we have for further analytics in the field of security. So quite a visual presentation as well, a bit like the previous speaker in terms of imagery, but this time more in terms of optic. So let me just see if I can switch slides. There we go. So a bit of travel. I think we're all lacking a bit of exciting travel around the world. So here's typically what we can see in the Maldives with 30 centimeter resolution. Apologies, it's not the best, let's say, look and feel when it's on a PowerPoint presentation, but basically the take on this image is to say that with 30 centimeters, I'm getting all sorts of questions in terms of, but can people see me when I'm in my bikini? Or can I find my cat when it's in the garden? Well, a cat moves a bit too quickly perhaps for our types of satellites, but in this context, typically this is taken early in the morning. We don't see the people in their bikinis with 30 centimeters, not yet. Even if in some contexts we can clearly see the color of the clothes and a number of other elements. But more seriously, what is it that we use to have this 30 centimeter resolution? These are our new satellites, Pleiad Neo, optical resolution that we've launched. The first was launched in April, the second in August. Why do they have numbers with 3 and 4? Mainly because they're the next generation of Pleiad, which we launched at 50 centimeter resolution. And what's so particularly exciting about these satellites is the fact that we've developed our own very secure ground segment, which is operated on a private cloud on premises in Toulouse. It's a constellation of 4 satellites. including the 2 first that have been launched already this year, the 30 centimeter resolution I've mentioned. And even if I believe we're a bit shy in talking about 75% innovation, and I keep on challenging the team in terms of what's the baseline behind that, well, there's innovation pretty much on all the different fronts, from the manufacturing of the satellite in terms of the design of the optical instruments, to the ground segment which we're operating, to the resolution, to the spectral bands, etc., to the reactive tasking, to the precision, etc. And I like what was said in the previous presentation around agility. And here, typically, what we're delivering with Pleiad Neo is a huge amount of agility, which is absolutely exceptional on the current market. As in, not only are we the only European provider to offer this, but we're the only global partner to offer such agility and reactivity. So to make this a bit more practical in terms of what it is that we can see. So if I'm not mistaken, this is somewhere near Ios Rock in Australia. So what is it that I can see here with a 14-kilometer swath? So again, 30 centimeter resolution. So I can see trucks, I can see passenger vehicles, I can see a few people. The road marks are exceptionally clear, even in the sands, a lot of vegetation. So that gives an idea. And on these images, again, apologies, they're not the best to look at via PowerPoint and WebEx, but these images do not benefit yet from the final corrections, but it does give a clear idea of what we can see in a diversity of landscapes. And I've got a few other pictures that show specific landscapes as well. I mentioned the spectral bands. There are 2 innovative spectral bands that we've added. One is called Deep Blue that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. Here, typically, we're proving the theory that by improving this deep blue, we can see clearly underwater. So you might tell me, Wendy, yeah, seeing that in the Maldives is easy because it's clear water anyhow. But we're running a hackathon in November with a number of players to see how far deep into the water we can see and what it is that we can develop in terms of analytics. To only name a few, how far can we see to some extent submarines or underwater basement and infrastructure and other activities. So there's a bit of excitement in terms of this being entirely new at this level of spectral resolution. And the red edge that you see on the right-hand side, often we talk about improving this red edge part in the context of agricultural applications that leverage optical imagery. What we have noticed is also in the dehazing, in the unique capacity of showing what's happening in the shadows. I don't have time in this current presentation, but this is an image of New York. In full resolution, we can, with a red edge, see extremely clearly the number of cars, the number of people, and actually see the reflection of what's happening in the other buildings, in the shadow of the skyscrapers. So in terms of security analytics and potential applications, this is extremely new ground to work with. In terms of tasking, because I mentioned agility, so it's not just the quality of the images. So tasking, I'll talk about it from 2 perspectives. I would say the first is in the user experience, which is the ease by which our customers can access the tasking from a smartphone or from the One Atlas platform, using different modes in terms of acquiring a single image, a series of image, or the best possible acquisition according to the weather, to really, I would say, rub off the complexity of the satellite imagery by making it even more accessible to a number of users that are not necessarily Earth observation savvy. And to give a few numbers behind that, this is my second, I would say, big line of argument around our agility in terms of reactive tasking. So if you look at the timing on the right-hand side, so this is universal time. It's not the local time in Sudan. But basically, because of the polar orbit of the satellite, we've got the capacity to retask pretty much every 100 minutes. And the uniqueness of this is that it also enables us to task with the absolute near real-time weather forecast of less than an hour that increases the probability of having the absolutely best quality image because it's done based on the last weather features available. The reactiveness is also in terms of you can task roughly up to 10 to 15 minutes before the passing of the satellite. So here typically, if you get the tasking at 8:43, you get the image at 9:01, 9:04, it's downloaded by the Space Data Highway. And after the processing, which roughly takes half an hour, you can get access to the image under less than an hour. In some contexts, we've even made it under 30 minutes. Then I'll say it all depend on the level of processing and the quality of the image. Typically, if I look at what defense customers or security customers ask for, they ask for a huge amount of metadata in the processing of the image. That's why at this stage, there's still this half-hour buffer in terms of the image being available and the final processing being done. But if, let's say, there's a trade-off between speed and the level of metadata, we can make the image available roughly 15 minutes after acquisition. So again, this is quite unique. It's a bit like what we see now with smartphones and social media. There's the sense of everything having to be immediate in terms of reactivity. There's a limited understanding for latency, regardless of the technology. And often we see people with extremely high expectations, but now we're able to deliver on these extremely high expectations again. Also for the tasking, thanks to our direct receiving stations, there's an ability to task with higher precision when it comes to let's say 10 to 20 degrees north, or when it comes to what's happening in the South Pole, with extremely probing results in terms of what's being delivered. And here, so in terms of revisits, to give an idea, over, let's say, a month, we've got 2 revisits per day, with some days with 3 revisits. So 3 revisits on some days and 2 on some other days. That's simply due to the orbitography of the satellites, so that we can't ensure yet today 3 full passages, but you basically get a huge number of passages with up to 45-degree angles once we'll have the full satellites operational. So it's quite exceptional with this resolution and this swath and reactivity. Benefits here, well, it's fully reliable. It's going to be fully commercialized, if I'm not mistaken, last week of October, early November. Now that we've finalized the processing and everything since the first launched in April. What we have been doing in terms of initial tasking for customers and all the tests ourselves is the amazing results that even amazes our own teams in terms of reliability and quality. The fact that it's fuel for a number of analytics. It's very European in terms of being 100% funded by Airbus, operated out of Europe, and it's mainly easy to access. And that's something that we spent a lot of time on in the development, to say, well, the satellite's got the technology that it needs to have to deliver with the level of expectations, but how do we really make the results accessible, whether it's the imagery, whether it's the tasking, etc. And out of all the tour of these countries that I've been to, that what I liked about the pyramids in Egypt was also the fact that if you look at the roundabout on the bottom left of the picture, you can actually see the little carts that are pulled by the horses that you find by the pyramids when you go there. So you can actually see that and distinguish that with this level of resolution, and you can see the different people that are lining up around the pyramid to go inside, etc. So in terms of applications, I really wanted to keep this presentation focused on the capabilities offered by Pleiad Neo, and not so much the analytics that we offer, but also the ecosystems that we work with offer. And to see how we could work with this, knowing that it's fully commercial and there's no, let's say, priority customer in terms of access to the images or to the tools. So thank you very much for your attention. Happy to have some questions later on, or any specific comments at this stage. And thanks again for your attention. So back to you, Michaela.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks again for this very interesting presentation. And now I think, thank you, that we have the presentation from Annelien Dudenoffen. Annelien is an open source intelligence analyst at Ensold Analytics. And in the past, she worked in the field of terrorism prevention and security research and also as intelligence analyst within the criminal police in Berlin. And today she will introduce an activity which has been funded by ESA within the EOLO project in cooperation with the Planetech Hellas, and it's about the combination of Earth observation data and open source intelligence for tracking insurgent activity in northern Mozambique. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Michaela. So as Michaela said, my name is Annelien Dudenhöfer, and I'm the OSN analyst at Hensoldt Analytics. Just to give a very brief overview, Hensoldt Analytics are a global leader in open source intelligence, artificial intelligence, automatic speech recognition, and media monitoring solutions. So essentially, it is one complete media mining solution to monitor both traditional, so for example, TV and radio, and social media outlets in order to generate actionable intelligence. However, today, one second. Yeah, there we go. Today, I will be speaking about the EOLO project, where we are focusing on the terrorism and organized crime domain, which is led by Planetech Hellas, and the Hensoldt Analytics team is a subcontractor to this activity and in charge of the open source intelligence analysis. So I want to start with a very brief overview. Essentially, the EOLO project means to demonstrate the impact and benefit from this technologically integrated approach in the operational processes in the law enforcement domain. And what I want to share with you today is a microanalysis of how Earth observation and open source information can be combined to verify certain narratives and analyze specific situations. So what we will focus on is the analysis of the attack in Palma in March and April in 2021, so in Palma in Mozambique, which Planetech Hellas and Hensoldt Analytics conducted, where Planetech Hellas and Hensoldt Analytics conducted an analysis as part of the EOLO project. So just to give you a bit of a background here, the Mozambican Al-Shabaab, as they're locally called, extremists first caught international attention in 2016, 2017, and the attack on Palma took place, or had its onset, to be honest, on the 24th of March, where the insurgents coordinated an extremely well-planned attack from 3 different directions, where they targeted government and police facilities as well as civilians. And the defense and rescue response and the media pickup were delayed due to the fact that telecommunications had been cut off by the insurgents prior to the attack, which is actually a practice quite common for this insurgent group. And while it was initially considered unlikely back in 2016 and 2017 for Al-Shabaab to have direct ties with foreign terrorist organizations, it is now known that they affiliated with Islamic State in 2019 already. So essentially why I'm showing you this example today is because I want to show that in combination Earth observation.
Can I put that there? Yeah, I can.
Thank you. Sorry, I think someone has their mic on. Someone else for me. Anyways, in combination, Earth observation and open source intelligence material can be utilized to increase situational awareness in conflicts and crises, and especially during the onset of those. So most of you will be aware of this, but this is just to show where in Cabo Delgado Palma is located and the general distance to Mocimboa da Praia. So here's the media pickup after the initial attack on Palma. There was a significant global media exposure after this attack, even though it wasn't the first attack perpetrated by the insurgents in the region. And as you can see, it was quite a bit. And essentially, Al-Shabaab benefited from the affiliation with Islamic State through an increased global exposure of their actions. However, I want to talk a bit more about the events and the attack. The attack itself. What you're looking at here now is an aerial view that marks both the directions from which the attack was reportedly launched, as well as other points of interest, such as the Amarula Palma Hotel and Palma Town. So through open source intelligence, we could, or open source information, we could pinpoint these three directions from which the insurgents entered the city. And then we have other points of interest, such as the Amarula Palma Hotel, where approximately 180 to 200 locals and expats were hiding out, hoping to be rescued. I will touch upon this topic a bit more later. And we have Palma Town, where the conflict took place predominantly. And according to private security contractors, the two major differences of the Palma insurgency in comparison to prior attacks by Al-Shabaab were the use of heavier weaponry, so not only AK-47 firearms, but also mortars, and B, the more sophisticated, well-coordinated plan of attack. And prior to the attack, as I said, the insurgents disabled all telecommunications within the city of Palma, which is why the pickup of international media mentions and situational awareness among the military forces in the region was delayed. So what you're looking at here is a media trends visualization. And as you can see, the media mentions of Mozambique, so of the topic Mozambique in the media, started only picking up on the 26th of March, and not on the 24th when the attack actually had its onset. So yeah, it's very apparent that this technique of cutting off the telecommunications before launching the attack has really paid off for this extremist group. So north of the city of Palma, as I said, approximately 180 to 200 locals and expats, for example, Total's LNG site workers, contractors, took shelter at the Amarula Palma Hotel and were waiting to be rescued. So what I want to share with you now in this case is one part of our analysis, namely the verification of the narrative that some of these contractors managed to escape and drove about a dozen vehicles to a nearby beach. Subsequently, they were apparently rescued by boat. So on Friday, the 26th of March, the Dike Advisory Group, a private security contractor, had flown in from Pemba with limited ammunition and limited fuel and airlifted about 20 people to safety from this hotel. So what you're looking at here on the satellite image, on the left-hand side, you can see the Amarula Palma Hotel complex. And on the right-hand side, you can see the coastline, so the beach to which these contractors apparently managed to escape. This is an image taken on the 27th of March. So the Dike Advisory Group had to interrupt the evacuation by nightfall as the helicopters were running out of fuel. This is a narrative told by the media. However, the group of people left behind at the hotel reportedly feared that the insurgents were closing in, and they were right, they were closing in. And according to Lionel Dike, the head of the Dike Advisory Group, a group of expats then tried to escape the lodge during the night and were ambushed twice. So with a convoy of about 17 to 20 cars, namely white pickup trucks, they left the hotel through the front gate and were allegedly ambushed by the insurgents emerging from the nearby trees immediately. And reportedly, only a dozen cars made it to the beach. So what you're looking at are a few points of interest I've marked here. So number one is the Amarula Palma Hotel parking lot, plus a few of scattered white pickup trucks that were ambushed in front of it. Number two are a few more vehicles that were being left behind. And number three marks an interesting finding, namely some larger vehicles either driving or parked around the corner, which we could neither detect on a satellite image from an earlier date nor on a satellite image taken at a later date. So this is obviously something that we find very interesting. Now, on the 4th of April, Sky News shared footage showing the Amarula Palm Hotel and the ambushed escape vehicles. Now, if we're looking at verifying the narrative that about a dozen vehicles made it to a beach and the contractors were subsequently rescued by boat, we can look at these satellite images that were taken after the 26th of March that show approximately 8 white pickup trucks parked on a beach. And we double-checked the satellite image taken at a later date. And we can see that these vehicles were still there, meaning that we could verify that the narrative that, you know, some of the LNG site contractors made it to this beach despite the 2 ambushes and were subsequently rescued by boat. So the people that stayed behind at the Amarula Palm Hotel were less fortunate, or at least some of them. This is a video that we found on a, or that we sourced with a Hensoldt Analytics media mining solution from a Telegram group that shows the 12 beheaded bodies of contractors left behind the Amarula Palm Hotel. Yes, so to sum this up, the Hensoldt Analytics media mining system was used for an in-depth open source intelligence analysis in this case, namely by sourcing and comparing traditional and social media. Then high-resolution satellite imagery provided for a comprehensive understanding of the situation on the ground. And if, in addition, you are then able to verify the information you gathered with, for example, local sources on the ground, such as NGO workers or journalists, or IDPs, internally displaced persons, then you can be sure that you've conducted a pretty solid analysis that you can actually present to others or use for actionable intelligence. So, I have reached the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. And you can contact me via my email anytime if you have any questions. And I will, if I can, stop sharing my screen now. There we go.
Thank you, Annelien. Very interesting, and also thanks for also the results that you are bringing into our EU law contracts, which is also very appreciated by the end users who are cooperating with us. Thanks a lot. Now we will have a presentation on maritime data fusion for maritime surveillance, and so we will have 2 speakers. Filippo Daffina is the first one for this topic. He is the 7C product manager at Geos, and since 2016 he is responsible for the development of a 7C maritime solution, providing multi-sensor maritime domain awareness services. And so he now shows us his platform and the new developments. Thank you, Filippo.
Thank you, Michela, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to quickly present you our maritime solution, C-on-C, that is the Geos and Telespazio Group solution for multiple applications, such as intelligence, defense, security, law enforcement, trading, market analysis and business intelligence, marine resource management, and environmental protection. C-on-C is available as a service. It means that Geos, by using our own assets, including Cosmos Skymed, the receiving station, and the capability to provide value-added services in near real-time mode, is able to provide actionable information to the customers, of course, according to the needs, and above all during emergency conditions. Or it is also able to provide the C-on-C solution as a platform. In this case, we will provide the installation, customization, integration and federation with already existing systems, training and capacity building, and operational support and data provisioning. C is able to provide multi-sensor maritime services, including services for maritime situational awareness, so more tactical services, and services more related to the most strategic part of maritime domain. This is an example of a federation between different assets. In this case, we are talking about radar as background image and for detecting dark vessels and features of interest. In this case, it was a very, very interesting, the capability to monitor a huge area during the morning passage, define what were the most strange events, in particular dark vessels anchored in area where it was not expected to stay there, and to immediately task an optical image, very high resolution, and then to drive the passage of the optical acquisition a few hours later. This is an example of a tip and cue methodology and federation of radar and optical image with the capability to cover huge areas in all weather conditions by using the radar, and then better characterize the vessels and the event of interest by using optical very high resolution. This is the results of a similar exercise. We are using in this case the Eros B images. So again, we were able to systematically cover the area of interest by using a radar image, detect dark vessels. In this case, it's clear also the presence of a military vessel, so a vessel not transmitting AIS, with a strange radar signature, a strange detection over the radar image. And we were able to immediately task an optical image over the area for understanding that it was not a single vessel, but two vessels very close one to the other. Other important feature that is in line with our development plan is the enhancement of detection algorithm, using both traditional model-based algorithms and also using artificial intelligence. In terms of traditional model-based algorithms, we are working to the ISAR techniques for the refocusing and for better characterizing the targets over very high resolution radar images. And we are also developing and testing a multiple approach in the context of the ESA project that we are working on. Other example, as I said before, is related to the application and assessment of models related to the artificial intelligence. In this case, it's very, very clear the improvements that we are having in terms of better detection and estimation of the vessel's dimensions, also in case of the wake that usually is considered by automatic algorithm as part of the vessel and will produce an estimation, a wrong estimation of the length. In this case, instead, is quite clear the smoothed effect of the wake. Also, the presence of the waves are not impacted on the map of the detection, and also the presence of clouds are not affecting the detection and not generated false alarms. Other important aspect, as said before, is related to the capability to improve the methodology on the detection of anomalous behavior. In this case, we are focusing a lot on the detection of meeting at sea, potential transshipment between dark vessels as marker of potential illegal activities. This is one of the most relevant application and type of anomalous behavior for security applications. And here we can see the detection of this kind of event by using radar images, very high resolution, same type of event using optical images at medium and very high resolution. And this is one of the most important for us, either because they were images, one of the first used for the maritime application as obtained a few days ago by using Cosmos Skymet, the second generation. And it is impressive also the possibility to understand the type of vessels by using high resolution over areas that are quite big in the weather condition where it is not possible to use other images. Another important feature that will be discussed and more detailed by my friend from ANSI Labs is the possibility to detect activity, track vessels, and better characterize this kind of vessels, also using new data sets that are available and that can be also, let me say, detected and estimated from space. In this case, we are talking about the capability to detect radio frequencies activities, marine radars working in X and S band by using Labs constellation. This is an example of a vessel that we were monitoring using AIS. So we are having all the information coming from satellite AIS, including the name, the identification code, the flag. We have access to a database of a vessel picture. Using AIS, we have also information about the historical track and the declared destination. Using a radar image, we can compare the information coming the AIS to understand if the detected vessel is in, with the same dimension and characteristics declared by the information contained in the AIS. And using RF, we can continue to monitor and to increase our knowledge and characterization of the vessels in terms of radar equipment. Last slide from my side is the capability to automatically collect, process, and fuse a huge amount of data. In this case, we are talking about all Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 acquired over the Mediterranean Sea in a specific period that may be 1 month. Automatically derive the ship detection, fuse with the AIS, and then aggregate the results to calculate the density maps. Very important to understand and quantify the volume of traffic over a specific period, comparing, for example, last month with the previous or last year with the previous one, and then also assessing and quantifying the impact of social events like the COVID-19 over the Mediterranean traffic for this specific purpose. And this is again also another type of analytics that we are developing cooperating with ESA. Then let me now give the floor to my colleagues from Labs for presenting the RF part.
Thank you, Filippo, for the introduction. Let me share my screen now. So, do you see my screen? I think
yes,
so.
Olivier.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Olivier Michel, the Chief Commercial Officer for Unseen Labs. I will introduce briefly Unseen Labs and our capabilities. And as Filippo explained, we are working on the RF ELINT signal. We are a European leader on the satellite borne. So the company was created in 2015 by two brothers. From now, we have raised 27 million euro, and we are 26 people. What we do, we develop and operate a unique and proprietary monosatellite technology to be able to locate, track, and also characterize the RF signal from space. And then we have a first market decided to focus on maritime surveillance. So now we have 4 satellites in orbit. They are on a different orbit, saying that we are able to cover all the oceans today. You will see later some concrete example and real data from different parts of the world. We have target to launch 25 satellites in 2025. And what we deliver data to our customer to be able to provide concrete example and data as a service and be able to be merged with other data sources. So we think that we could be a game changer in maritime surveillance as we detect a new kind of beacon. So as Filippo explained, we focus on radio frequency emitted by all vessels at sea, even if the smaller one and the biggest one. We have an accuracy at 1 kilometer. And as I mentioned, we are able also to characterize the technical parameter of each beacon that we are listening to. And what is also important and what we work also with EGOS is the complementarity, that you see that we could be able to merge our data with the AIS, with the SAR, to improve the maritime situation awareness for our customers. and not only characterize the light point, we also be able to create a unique footprint, a unique signature for each beacon. That allows also to create a database on RF emitter and also provide some services like the tracking. Here, the roadmap. So as I said, we launched already 4 satellites, and we have 3 other scheduled by the end of this year. So beginning of next year, we will have 7 satellites in orbit. So improving the revisit time, improving the coverage. So if we talk about the revisit time, will be go down to 3 and 4 hours for the revisit time. Here, some concrete example on, once again, different part of the world. So you see in white, this is the size of one acquisitions. So the size for one pass of the satellite is minimum 400 kilometer by 400 kilometer. So you see that we are covering very large area in one pass. So there, and on this example, I will pass on another one because we can make a zoom. But the situation is that we are able here on this picture to merge our collection on RF with the AIS. So if we make a zoom for the two square, you see that we collect some AIS data, we collect our unseen data, and when you merge, you see the blue square where we reveal probably some dark activities. Vessels are not reporting AIS, but they are emitting radio frequencies emission. So if we are able to catch the signal, saying that for sure they have a vessel in this area. So what they are doing, that's why I say it's probably dark activities. So based on this information, you can improve the maritime section awareness, but you could also try to go deeper, understand the situation thanks to other technologies and thanks to also some research. Here another example that you see also the different square that we are able to reveal some activity. The vessels are probably sometimes reporting IS outside of the EEZ. You know that the IS could be switched off, could be spoofed. So probably here in this activity, it's for illegal fishing, and they report outside of the EEZ, but in fact they are inside the EEZ because we are able to detect the radar signatures. Another example as well, where we reveal on the red cycle the activities, RF activities. So with this kind of data, you can also optimize your maritime situation awareness, optimize the use of different forces as well. And the last example that was mentioned earlier, based on the technical parameter, we are also able to track some vessels. So here in red, it's the theoretical route of the vessels on different days, first day, second day, and third day. But in fact, in yellow, we are able to reveal that on the third day, it goes on the route on the north, and they indicate they have to go on west. So this is for me. I'm available if you have some questions. Do not hesitate to reach out to Philippe or myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Filippo and Olivier, for those interesting presentations. And now we will have the last presentation. So we have Camille Goral, who is the Director of Solution at DataWalk. DataWalk is a platform, a software platform to connect different large data sets into a single repository for fast visual analysis. And this company from Poland is working a lot with the law enforcement community. So please, Camille, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I assume everybody can see my screen and see me, I guess.
Yes, we can see.
Oh, good. All right. Oh, sorry, some issue there. Second, technical stuff. So thank you, Michaela, for the introduction. So very excited to get going on this presentation. So good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for joining my session. And this is Camille Goral from DataWalk, and I'm the head of solutions. So I mainly research high-value problems and how to how our technology can cover them uniquely, or I would say comprehensively. So today we're going to be talking about data journey from facts to intelligent decision making. And to keep it short and sweet, I have just a few slides and with some, I hope, compelling examples. And when time permits, I will show you some sort of exciting use case regarding COVID-19, that some kind of a project we did in 2019. But before we get into our topic today, first things first. So just a few words about DataWalk. So we are a software company that provide a data analysis tool that enables large amount of data from many sources to be easily fused, linked, and analyzed through various visual tools like a link chart, visual querying, summaries, or dashboards, or graph algorithms, as well as machine learning. And this is like a new concept of a graph analytics that enables people to interact with data more naturally. So essentially, we provide a data analysis platform that is currently used for, I call it, investigative analytics sort of use cases. So generally for fighting against crimes in the public and commercial sector. However, the software, this is my observation, is starting to be used for non-bad guy scenarios use cases. All right, so that was about us. And I titled my presentation as Connect the Dots to derive actionable and intelligence insights, because generally all data of any kind is used to, make a decision regardless of whether this is a fighting the bad guy scenario, natural disaster case, clinical trial sort of problem, typical business decision from commercial sector, like where to sell, how, what, when, to whom, and so on. Some supply chain problems, and actually anything else you can imagine. And beyond decision making, I may take you back to how this data journey looks in a very high level understanding. So generally, the process starts from the facts that are unstructured, right? So for instance, a single map visualization, and actually this absolutely means nothing to us unless we provide a context of what we are actually looking at or looking for. And this fact plus a single context will give us some information. So this might be really decisive in many cases, but sometimes it might be really misleading without a complete picture. I've observed it a number of times, and sometimes it might be even overwhelming when you have 100 of such information daily, and that information is not combined anyhow, and you have to consume this somehow. So the general idea is to find a way to match several contexts to create a piece of, I would say, knowledge that can be then converted towards intelligence action. So it means more questions, more data you have, more questions, more answers you can get. That means you are higher on the pyramid. So just to give you a simple example, actually similar example you have seen just several minutes ago on the Henstolf Analytics Company presentation, I think. Sorry if I misspelled this name. And this will be very similar concept, but provided from a different angle. So now I can see some, let's say, standard map and presented in amplitude, which means nothing to me. However, adding new context, specifically, I'm looking for a terrorist-based campus in the region of interest. I can interpret that picture is in such a way that those lines and dark spots are potential trials left on the sand. And when we add a national context, you may think of this as another database or another data set, particularly mobile device signals and some patterns detection, like a co-travelers or bed down hours. We can deduct that, for instance, these lines are transit paths and dark spots are potential terrorist base camps or some, let's say, gathering places, right? Moreover, we can identify that the place where some individuals are between 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., which means their place of living or sleeping. We call it the bed down patterns. Moving further, using another portion of Intel data, we can determine the names of terrorist organizations of interest, specifically, let's say, for example, Al-Qassam. And then adding a new context, like a social media that was mentioned as well, and also in the open source intelligence, like a Telegram messages, we can identify new names, some phone numbers, and some posts that can be indicative of a crime or of a potential terrorist attack. And finally, by adding points of interest data and matching them with mobile IDs that I mentioned previously, we can deduct that that the place of potential attack and potential assassin place of stay. Right? Powerful, isn't it? It is. And apart from that, I can use and provide other examples from commercial sector though. So fusing, for instance, some satellite maps data of natural disasters and combining them with, let's say, claim data or a weather forecast, historical data, customer history. Typically, we use statistical data and so forth. We can answer very complex questions like whether it's fraud or was fraud or non-fraud. Which path of claim handling should be taken, fast track or standard evaluation, which can really significantly reduce cost of the claim handling process. So in addition, our claim examination can be automatically, let's say, enhanced with the compensation amount, or we can even provide a better product fit for the customer, right? Considering other data like a statistical data. And of course, I can bring in dozens of other examples and how powerful combining various contexts might be. But generally, we are talking about fusing many data sources that can be potentially quite large in scale, in size, and organize them around some, let's call it business objects like people, places, instead of managing them around databases, which happens very often, and which is very typical process and approach. This will lead us to answer very complex questions such as who, when, what, where, and how, and to get very meaningful answers. Sounds lucrative, and of course it does. But you know, working with data, I see a lot of buts. And considering the traditional approach to get this done, we are talking about the number of steps that we must go through to get the intelligence insight, right? Firstly, we have to go and to pull data together, fuse data, standardize and clean it up. Then we have to link it, finally discover data and interpret results. Another limitation I see is a performance problem. So integrating and analyzing billions of records instead of 100,000 of records requires appropriate infrastructure, architecture, and solutions. So even you have to know that even if the solution works today, doesn't mean that it still be working tomorrow. Considering, of course, the large amount of data produced each day and pulled into the system, the database. Moreover, organizing data around sources instead of business objects typically causes some difficulties in exploration and interpretation, and it's reserved and provided for technical users, not business users. And business users should be the ones who should interact with data, right? And all this makes these projects really difficult and expensive in purchasing and maintaining. And sometimes, and please do believe me, the numbers might be really crazy. So the question is, do we have any alternative to that traditional approach? And the answer is yes, we do. And the alternative is the relationship-oriented approach that can be considered as a graph analytics approach as well. So I don't know whether you are familiar with this term. However, humans understand and see the world as objects that are connected, such as people, places, things that can be static or in motion. We follow the relationships from one object to another to gain new insight from the connections. So answering real business or security questions requires understanding these relationships between objects and being able to reflect them in this digital data world. So this relationship-oriented approach is a set of, let's call it, analytic techniques that shows how entities such as people, places, and things are related to each other. And this is exactly what DataWalk does in a very short period of time. So you can fuse all your data, regardless whether we are talking about unstructured or structured data, internal or external, whether they are small or large, from single source or dozens of sources. And you can organize them around something that we call understood business object or understood business data sets, representing objects such as I mentioned, people, places, phones, vehicles, Vasil's, whatever data actually you have can be displayed on such canvas, and this is displayed here on the screen. And by the way, you can think of this as a sort of a knowledge graph, right? So then having all data fused and linked in a very dynamic and flexible way, business users can perform complex no-code ad hoc queries. This is like a huge freedom in querying and using your data. So, and those queries execute very fast on billions of records or on terabytes of data. I mentioned about those limitations with that. So here there is no issue. And this is exactly Datawalk. And just to give you a simple sort of implementation we had, let me switch to another slide. And when COVID-19 started, we decided to use the platform to support governments on this epidemic battleground. And in just the 4 weeks, we set up an analytical environment that enabled people gathering monitoring. That's first. Secondly, monitoring of society movements using cellular service providers data, which means analyzing how people have transited from across the country from place with a large number of cases, outbreaks, to the regions with a smaller number of infections. For what? To predict actually future hotspots or outbreaks. And we use this to build something that I named personally intelligent map that shows sort of a scoring for specific zones and areas to provide very intelligent action on top of that. So let's switch over to a quick demo. I think we've got several minutes to show you the first taste of what I just described. So the screen you see right now, we call the universe viewer, which is the key element of the system, which is the visual representation of all the data in the system. So each of this icon represents the data set of interest, data sets that might be derived from one or more sources, while the line indicates the connections between those data sets. Beyond each icon, you can see the number of connections. So here, for instance, we used MAID, which is a mobile advertising IDs data set with just like a 3 days data set with 91 millions of records. In total, it was about billions of records. Then we've got some information about the quarantine records, some information about people, individuals, hospital, clinics, medical facilities, vaccination scores, districts, and some demographic data like a population or some other things that are really interesting and important from the perspective of COVID-19 case. So, and of course, anytime you can review underlying data in table. However, I'll just show you some simple query that you can generate on top of the structure that I previously named a knowledge graph. So for instance, we've got a number of cases. We can select the number of cases here, which represents the number of cases for specific districts. Then we can open the histogram that represents, this is the, let's say, visual data representation for each data set. And then we can determine that we would like to see only the districts with the highest value of number of, let's say, COVID cases. So by selecting this option and to double click the system, what it does, it reduces data down to only 57 records related with 57 districts. Then I can move further to see some what kind of districts there are on the list and provinces. And then I can go again, just skip this data set and go further to another data set to see some demographic data related with risk. So now I see the number of people with chronic disease, population size over 17, and so on and so forth. Then, as I mentioned, we generated something that I call this infection risk zone or intelligent map to determine some places with the highest risk, considering all of those attributes that I mentioned. Then, using the MAID logs, so single anonymous IP, let's say pins with geolocation, we were able to identify unique gathering places. So going through this connection, we can go to this unique gathering places data set and visualize those places on the map. So generally, it means that people are trying to, when the country was closed and there was a lot of lockdowns, and we've got a number of cases, and we'd like to somehow impact that. We should observe that situation on the map. I will just change this as a heat map, presented as a heat map. As you can see, this is a Toronto place. We can scroll this, zoom it in, and see. And right now we see some Toronto Island. And in order, of course, anytime I can see any details about this data, single data points, like a number of people, average number of devices per gathering, or what is the typical days of meeting, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and some other things, some other dimensions we can use to determine how suspicious, how interesting the place is. And then I can just visualize the place on the street view to just only double check whether this is the proper place or not. This is a real example from street view. So we see that this is like a YAF people meeting place. So right now, authorities, based on that knowledge about the huge number of cases, COVID cases, and some places where people still meet instead of staying at home, they can provide some, let's say, preventive measures in order to stop coronavirus spreading. All right, so that was a very, I know that it was really quick example of how you can query data using various types of data, data sets that are combined together. So thank you very much for your attention. And if any questions, feel free to contact me through my email. I think it's here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Camille. Thanks a lot for this presentation. Very interesting technology and also new. So I think we are running out of time, and I do not see any questions that is related to the event. But of course, I think you have also the emails from the speakers, and you can contact them. I think we had interesting presentation in terms of inputs and content today, and also new technologies that would be useful for the law enforcement and security sector. So I would like to thank you, in particular the speakers, for their time and availability, and thanks a lot also to all the attendees. Thank you, and bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Michela. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paula.
Everybody.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.